Greetings to one and all, it's your old buddy Jay here coming at you with another episode of Countermeasures Game Changer. I haven't done one of these for a while. I have been away for a little while, not really putting up quite so many videos recently. I've had quite a lot of work on, I've been doing a lot of illustration, and actually I had decided that I didn't want to do a JPlay hourly breakdown sessions of Jedi Survivor, because I kind of felt that I needed to really get my teeth into this to fully appreciate what it was, rather than doing it in smaller segments and trying to talk along while I was doing it, because that can always get a little bit windy, and I do like to go on a little bit. So what I thought I would do is just do like a very quick sort of roundup of where I got to with this game, what I think about this game. So the last set of playthroughs that I did were for the JPlays were for Jedi Fallen Order, and it was a replay. I did a New Game Plus. I really enjoyed it. It had a few issues, but it is an excellent game. I think I gave it a 9. It could have been pushing a 10, but I think it was a 9, and it did have some things going on in it that I wasn't too mad about. Some of the combat, the lightsaber combat wasn't so good. So anyway, everything about what I loved about Fallen Order transferred into this sequel, which is Jedi Survivor. It's an EA game, published by Respawn, and they just did an absolute cracking job. And any of the issues that I had with the first one just completely and utterly were dissolved in the second one, because they just fixed everything on a monumental scale. The worlds are larger, the combat is much more interesting, the enemies that you're fighting are much more varied, and I mean, there's just so much going on in this game. The RPG elements are much stronger, and I think it ticked a lot of the boxes for a really great game for me, and I had a brilliant time with it. Now, I think you can go through the main story in about 15 to 20 hours. I think that's average, maybe 25. I actually ended up spending about 60 hours in this game, so hence probably best that I didn't do a playthrough of it, just because you'd be bored to death by now. And it was I never really felt like I was rushing to the end. There was always other stuff to go and do that I really wanted to get into. So let's just do a sort of recap of what this game is. So this is the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order. The main protagonist in the first game was a guy called Cal Kestis, and he is a Jedi who is being tracked down by the Inquisitors and Darth Vader and all that kind of stuff. So this takes place before Star Wars, but after Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and any other movies that have fitted in between there, like Solo and all that stuff, I'm guessing. So it's at a stage where the Jedi are being hunted. Now, in Fallen Order, they were after a holocron which had a big list of names of Jedi that were in hiding, and they wanted to get that before the enemy got it, before the Inquisitors got it, in order for them to then kind of save all of those hidden Jedi. And spoilers, sorry about that, skip ahead 30 seconds, but they destroy the holocron at the end of the first one because they decide that actually no one should have that information and everyone should just stay in hiding. So that's fine, and the story was fine. It was okay, it was predictable, but it was fine. So with this one, you find out very early on that Cal is running with a crew, and they're going around Coruscant, and they're basically trying to disrupt the Empire as much as they can. His ship gets damaged. He's still flying around in the Mantis, but none of his crew are with him. So he takes the Mantis to a place called Kobo, and then on Kobo he meets up with some of his fellow crew members, and it's like a sort of desert planet, a bit like Tatooine, but it has kind of jungle areas and hidden caves and all that kind of stuff. So that's all kind of set in place, and during the process of him being on that planet, like I said, he meets up with other characters. There's lots of more interesting layers to this mechanically than were in the first one, where you've got kind of shops you can go to, you've got other characters that you can interact with that give you side missions and all that kind of stuff, and it does make for a much more interesting game, because while you're doing the main story, you've got all this other kind of extra RPG stuff that you can go and do to build up your stats, to get your character sort of leveled up, to make it a little bit more interesting, and to have different levels of playability through stances and through skills, but I'll get into that in a sec. So yes, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and you're on this planet looking around, meeting people, and you find out that there is a hidden planet called Tanalorr, and it's specifically hidden by the Jedi eons ago, however you want to say it. And your mission now is to basically try and find a way to get to Tanalorr, so that there's a secret hiding place for like a Jedi training center that the Empire will never be able to find. So the issue being now is that the Empire just keep kind of disrupting and damaging. There's no sort of rebellion as such, all that kind of stuff hasn't really happened yet. So Cal's mission is basically to try and find a sort of safe haven where people can kind of come to kind of hide from the Empire, to train to be better Jedis, etc., and then stand a fighting chance of fighting back against the Empire. So that's basically the story, and the story beats are really good. They obviously do something in this game which is incredibly hard to do. So usually in kind of these larger RPG, you have a kind of secret hidden ticking clock. There's like, this is a mission that we have to get to. This person's going to die. We don't have much time. We've got to get on it. Here's our main story. We've got to get on these things. We've got to get from A to B. And in between getting to A to B, you kind of go off and plant some plants, or you go off and kind of have an adventure where you're looking for someone's medallion. It doesn't really make sense that you would be off doing all of these kind of side missions when there's something so pressing happening. So with this, they do a very good job of building the tension for something happening, and then there's a quiet period after that. There's a moment where you're given a little bit of space to breathe, so you can go off and find new uniforms, you can go off and do these side quests, and it doesn't feel like there's this ticking clock going on. And then eventually you can re-engage with the main story, and it will progress further. You'll have kind of exciting set piece happen, some films, you'll kind of fight a sub boss or whatever, and then there'll be another kind of breathable period after that then allows you to go on and do all this other stuff. And I feel like that pace is brilliant, especially with games like this, where yes, you can whiz through and do it in 20 odd hours if you want to do that, or you can just take your time. You can go and you can talk to people. You don't feel like you should be doing something else. I felt a little bit like that with The Witcher, where there's all this side mission stuff to do, but then there's this sort of big pressing thing where you're trying to find Ciri, and you're being chased by the Wild Hunt and all that, and it's like, well, that is a really pressing thing that's coming down on you. Meanwhile, you're off, like, I don't know, finding berries in a field. It just sort of seemed a little bit sort of against it. It sort of held the pace in a way that I didn't really feel worked. Whereas this time, they've absolutely nailed that balance, and I think that works really well. Storytelling is as good as it was in the first one. Again, the story is predictable. You kind of see it coming a mile off. But again, with all these sort of things, I think with all the complexities and what's going on within these kind of games, there has to be some kind of simple narrative that people who are going to play for a little bit, go away, come back, play for a little bit, go away. They still know what's going on, or maybe they don't play for a month, or they've got something else going on. They come back, they can still engage with the simplicity of the core of the story. So I think that's fine. They could have gone and done something really complicated, but I think that might have been to the detriment of the game, and it could have ended up harming it. So in a way, they kind of have this very simple story, but then it branches off in ways that you're not expecting. So they do kind of like play with your expectations a little bit. So as you saw earlier, there was some other new mechanics that have been introduced, so you can now fully customize Cal, whereas before you could just change his ponchos, which were fine, and then when you complete the game in Fallen Order, you get like a kind of Inquisitor outfit that you can use. In this one, you're finding hats. Oh no, actually you're not finding hats, sorry. You're finding coats and jumper shirts and shoes and kind of desert hoodies and all this sort of stuff. You don't find any hats. I spoke at a misturn there, but you do find hairstyles, and you do find beard styles and all that kind of stuff. So that is fun, because that is something that I realized that I absolutely love. It's something that I loved in Mass Effect, that completely hooked me in Mass Effect 1, 2 and 3, and all the subsequent, I can't even remember what the fourth one was, but the fact that you could customize your armor and customize your weapons and all that kind of stuff, I do really think is something that I really love in a game. You're going through the desert, you want to be wearing desert gear. You're in kind of Coruscant, where it's all kind of like shiny corridors. You want to be in your kind of your Han Solo garb, where it's all kind of very sort of city-like, and then you're going through swamps, and you want to be wearing kind of like almost like sort of white stormtrooper type armor, and it's just really fun to play around with that. And you're going through the desert, you can have like a tied bun hairstyle and a big beard, and then when you're doing other things where you've got like sort of getting close to the end of the game, maybe you're sort of a little bit more trimmed out and more of a sort of refined character. So I just love all that stuff. I love shopping, basically. That's my problem, and this game has that kind of element where you find those things. It is a bit weird how you find stuff. I mean, finding clothes and stuff in a little box that pops up and gives you, your shirts and whatever, that makes sense. You will find the little kind of boxes that you had in Fallen Order, or, scattered throughout the many different planets that you can go to in this one as well. But you find like a beard, like in in like the basement of a stormtrooper, sort of. Base or something like that, which is a little bit strange, but I understand why they did it. And then there is also a shop where you can find these little crystals called priorite, and then that allows you to then go and buy, other bits and pieces from the shop that you might, particular hairstyles or whatever. So that's fun. You meet a whole load of different characters. I do think that, again, my love of Mass Effect, they've just sort of embraced that in this as well. So you've got a saloon where everyone hangs out on the desert planet of Kobo, and hanging out with all of those guys is fun. The more you talk to characters, they unlock things. So like there's one guy that if you just keep continuously talking to, eventually he unlocks a room in the bar, and there's some stuff in there that you can get. Other characters tend to reveal side quests that you can go and do, so you have to fight like a massive rancor monster, which I've got some footage coming up of that. He was a massive pain in the arse, and I fought him right at the very start and didn't stand a chance. And even afterwards, when I completed everything, 60 odd hours of playing, I went back to fight him and he still kicked my ass, but I did eventually defeat him. It was a glorious moment, which is at the tail end of this video footage. So here you can see it's a boss fight. These are pretty standard in terms of like the different characters that you meet throughout. The boss fight you're looking at is a little bit of a spoiler. He's a character who comes into this sort of quite early on. But the motivations of his character, the story, the way that it's all structured and put together, I did really like. The other thing that this does that wasn't in the previous one, or there was a little touch of it, is it allows you to have stances. Now, stances are basically different ways to use your lightsaber. So in the first one you could have like a single lightsaber, or you could have a double lightsaber, and then you could flip between the two on the fly, and you could do all that sort of stuff and fight in a different way. In this one there's an additional one. There's one where you've got like a dual weld where you hold two at once, and I believe that was a special move in the first one, where the double lightsaber split into a special move and then reconnected, but you couldn't walk around with two, whereas in this one you can. There is a like a crossguard version, which is like Kylo Ren's lightsaber that has the lightsaber with the little cross bit across your hands, and and that's like a heavy damage weapon. It's very slow, but there's some enemies that you fight throughout the very wide variety of enemies that you do fight, that is very useful against. And then there's another one which is like a single lightsaber, and you get a pistol which gives you some kind of distance damage in order to kind of chip away at people's armor. And the way the fights work is very much the same as they did in the first one. It's very much the same as Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Sekiro even, which is that you just fight someone and they slowly chip away at their damage, and then at their armor, and then eventually you break their stance, you break their armor, and then that allows you to do damage to them. And the harder settings that you play on, the more difficult that becomes. I played the whole thing on Grandmaster, which is like the hardest setting to do, and I would say that had I have not played Fallen Order immediately before this, I probably wouldn't have done that. But by the time I'd played Fallen Order and spent all the time that I did in that one, when I came into this, I just felt like the tutorials and everything was so sort of second to none for me. They were just kind of ingrained in my brain by that point, that I just went ahead with the hardest setting, and that actually made sense for me. I think maybe just going into this blindly, not having played the other one, you might want to do it on Jedi or whatever first, but that seemed to fit for me, and it did make the boss fights harder, but I enjoyed that. And again, that's a Dark Souls element that originally Fallen Order got me into Dark Souls anyway, because I was never really a big fan of Demon Souls and Dark Souls and the kind of FromSoft, but this the style of Fallen Order was just enough to get me hooked into that repetition of you die, all of the bad guys you've just killed regenerate, and then you try again. But in doing so, you gain experience and you gain other elements, and eventually you get better and better, and then you will be able to overcome those obstacles. And this game definitely has that balance done down to a T. The other thing this game has is it has different skills, obviously. So you can boost your kind of ability for telekinesis, your ability to slow down time, your ability to use different stances for your weapons, etc., etc. So it allows you to kind of have different powers for different lightsaber settings and different stances. That's really good. There is a skill level to this, which are basically like perks. In fact, they are called perks, and that allows you to then set your character to have, particularly good at blocking, or maybe you get more XP per kind of a bad guy that you kill, which I think is essential when you first start, to try and get your skill levels up. And then you also have different perk settings that allows you to kind of do more damage with your lightsaber, but take more damage. So if you're like me, I'm getting pretty good at dodging. So when it comes to kind of fighting people, I can do really bad damage with my lightsaber, but then also, take it on the chin in terms of being able to dodge stuff. And if I get hit, in a lot of the bosses towards the end are one hit kills anyway, so it kind of doesn't matter. So there's a lot of that to play with. There's lots of layers. I just really love this game. So I'm going to wrap it up now, and thanks for watching. It's a 10 out of 10, and I really appreciate you tuning in, and hopefully we'll see each other again soon. So until then, be good, stay safe, and be kind to one another. 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, woo! Yeah.